And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk. Michigan State, game number 2 of the exhibition season, beat Ferris State 85-67. Michigan State with a plus 15 in free throws made, and they win by 18 points. It was free throws that were kind of the difference, a sloppy game. But Izzo said, hey, I came into the game expecting to play 4 different lineups that they wanted to look at. But it was a 5th lineup I don't think they were planning to use that actually created distance and won this game. After Ferris had cut the lead to 45-40 in the second half, they put in a small lineup with 3 guards, including 2-point guards, and Konyndyk moved him to the 4, and they go on an 8-0 run, take back control of the game for those that are interested in what happened in the game. But more importantly, Izzo wanted to know what's going on with the team, and he came out of it saying that he himself, did some things that weren't conducive to getting a lead and expanding a lead. But the bad news for him, not the bad news, but the tedious news is that he didn't see a lot of growth out of some areas that I think he wanted to see. Paul, is that the way you saw it?
Yeah, and I mean, that 5th lineup that you talked about with the Konyndyk at the 4 and Jackson Kohler at the 5, that's a plan. I mean, it's a planned move. I mean, it's something that, in terms of that's what they think they can use as a wild card, and that's something they've worked on with Konyndyk at the 4. Mm-hmm. That's something they think they can really work on against those teams that are super guard heavy, and it's a good option to have in exhibition play, in non-conference play, in the NCAA tournament when you see some of that type of stuff. So this team is more multiple in terms of what it can do. The disappointing thing to me, was that, they didn't shoot as a high percentage as they wanted to. They didn't get the inside-outside points that they wanted to from the very beginning of the first half. They wanted to go inside and kick it out. And so you could see what they wanted to do, but they didn't do it. But I think the thing for me is in that second half, Michigan State had 12 offensive rebounds in the first half. Those guys were hitting the glass hard, and everyone was playing, scrapping for, loose balls. And then you get up to around 19 points, and it's just casual city. Guys that need to practice on not being casual were extra casual, and it was a problem. And when you don't cut out, when you allow Ferris was dominated on the glass in the first half, but when you allow those guys to get second,
Ferris was dominated
in the first half on the glass.
They were dominated by
Michigan State in the first half. In the second half, you saw this creeping back into 8 rebounds. So when Michigan State lacks the effort on the glass and the energy, that's a bad sign, because this team isn't the type of team that can just right now step on someone's throat and blow them out of the gym. And that's exactly what Michigan State didn't need. The transition fast break game. Even as many shots as Michigan State missed in transition, they had a 19-5 advantage at halftime, and they should have had a 29-5 advantage at halftime. But in the second half, they did not score as many transition baskets. They did a couple times when point guards took it the distance and scored that way. But the rebounding piece, Michigan State has to rebound the basketball, has to have that kind of effort to do it, clear that defensive glass to get out there and run. And one of the big plays in this game was, and Xavier Booker got pulled for it, and he sat for a long time, was a shot came up, and he was really soft on the defensive glass. It went to his the guy that he should have been cutting out, and the guy made an easy basket over him, and it just juiced the Ferris bench, and they continue to play. I feel like they out-hustled. And
on the very next trip, that same guy went around Booker on the very next trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Then Booker sat down for 7.5 minutes.
And he should, because, we've talked a lot about how Booker's grown a lot from last year, but he looked like last year's version of Booker on those 2 plays, and that's exactly what Michigan State can't afford. And, so I think there's some lessons there. I liked a lot of what I saw, but it's really honestly hard to get a good read on this team based on how many players are playing, because you really don't get a flow. At times it looked like Frankie Fiddler was the best player on the floor. And then you're playing a different lineup and Frankie's not out there. And so I learned a little bit about this team, but not as much as I wanted to be honest with you.
Yeah, Fiddler plays 17 minutes. Ferris State transition defense was not good. They're not in midseason form, obviously, and they don't see teams that run like Michigan State does. And Michigan State's really been working on the transition game. Last week at practice, we were here, and you could see they were putting a lot of time in to get that Michigan State transition game going. It wasn't quite up to speed for the Northern Michigan game as much. They put time in it. Konyndyk dangerous on that thing, and they're going to be feeding that. And that part of it looks pretty good. But transition points, getting fouled in transition, that's how Michigan State wins this game. They won the game. That'll be drying up real quickly when they start playing against some credible competition.
I don't think the foul shooting advantage will be drying up. I mean, I'm not saying that Michigan State's all of a sudden going to be one of those, like, drive to foul teams.
28 today, 28 free throw
28
attempts.
free throws. They're not going to get that many, but one of the things I wrote about in my 3 and out was this is one of the things that Michigan State wants to do. They want to get to the free throw line more often. Frankie Fiddler by himself, just bringing him on the team, that gives them a guy that's very adept at getting to the free throw line. Michigan State was number 12 in the Big Ten last year in free throw attempts. I don't know where it's going to put them with the team that they've got, but they've got enough guys that can put the ball on the floor and drive. Especially with Frankie Fiddler, he's going to get to the line. If Michigan State plays more inside out and can be an offensive rebounding team, they're going to get to the line more. One of the things that they did a little bit more in this game than we've been accustomed to going back to the transition game is you see a lot more guys from the wing position driving baseline. That's something we haven't seen a ton of. Maybe we saw a little. We see it here and there, but most of the time it's been a perimeter jump shot from some guys. So when you have guys like like Jace Richardson, like a Konyndyk that can put the ball on the floor,
and Fiddler,
Jaden Akins, we saw him do it tonight. If you can get out there and you can run your butt off, and you have a big that can run, that's the other thing we saw tonight. I thought the bigs did a nice job running baseline to baseline. If you can beat that team down the floor and do it with multiple guys, that baseline drive is there. It's not going to be there against every team, but I do think Michigan State is going to score more free throw points this year than they have in years past, and that was a point of emphasis, and that's one of the reasons why Michigan State wanted to bring in Frankie Fiddler as much as they did.
Sure, and Fiddler did some good things, but Izzo trying to reshape him and program him into having some Michigan State grit, trying to Spartanize him, trying to program him. Fiddler is productive, led the team in scoring, but Izzo was quick to point out that he didn't have any rebounds. There was one play when Fiddler had defensive position, goes up for a rebound, and the guy from Ferris State just took it away from him, puts it back up in and gets fouled. Fiddler sitting down. These are things Fiddler has to learn, and I suspect he'll make progress there. This team cannot be like a good team, like finish in the top 4 in the Big Ten, unless he learns to fix those things, because that's winning basketball. Like Izzo said, that might have been his quote. He has to learn some things in order to play winning basketball. Booker, Izzo said he's been practicing well and so forth, and the little lapses that he made, can't have those. I mean, it's got to be an every minute, every day, every time, every practice, every game, every minute, every trip, every minute, every second, every minute for him to make it a habit. Any leakage and slippage there, it's not going to be good enough. This team does not have much margin for error because the scoring is going to be sporadic this year. And the thing we haven't talked about yet is Jaden Akins. Akins, 1 out of 5 from the floor, 0 for 2 from three-point range, 5 rebounds, not scoring. Akins ends up with 2 points, 3 points, 3 points.
1 point came.
3 points.
That was the opening scoring salvo for Michigan State, where he came in a la Charlie Bell and got the tip in.
That's his only basket.
That was his only basket. And
so he scores 3 points. He didn't score at against Northern Michigan. I think he was 2 of 12 or something like that. Had some cold games in Europe. We've seen a couple of scrimmages, and Izzo's kind of mentioned here and there. Yeah, he's kind of in a little shooting slump here and there. Well, you hope it's just a slump, and you hope it's being exercised at this point in the season. I'll just say it. We've seen some seniors have some senior situations here over the years, and Izzo said he's trying real hard to be a passer, but I need him to be a shooter. He's a good kid. Izzo likes him as a kid, so the communication's going to be pretty good. They're going to go to him. They tried to go to him with a diamond set the first possession of the second half. He came off a screen, and I don't know if he was open or not. I have to look at it again, but they went to him, and they're going to go to him because they need him to be a scorer because they haven't established any go-to scorers at this point. And if he's going to slump, that ball's going to get stuck. I thought it got stuck a few times against Northern Michigan, and the season starts next week against Monmouth, and the offense it's shaping into being a team right now. If nothing else, Izzo wants it to be a scrappy, effective, brass tacks team, but they don't have a lot of brass tacks type of guys. They need to be, programmed and so forth. So it's hard to win that way if you don't have, scrappy, fire-breathing, spit and nails type of guys. So if you don't have spit and nails guys and you don't have scoring either, it could become a problem real soon. And that's what Izzo's stressing about right now. He's confident. He likes these guys. They went 11 or 12 deep. He says he's looking for people to raise their game and take over their own minutes, but nobody really is. So he's got a conundrum going there also.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Honestly, Jaden Akins is not going to be the leading scorer on this team.
It could be Fiddler?
It's got to be Fiddler. I mean, you saw a little bit of what Michigan State's going to end up doing. Jaden Akins had the ball, late shot clock scenario, and he didn't He did not get it. I don't know if he didn't get a shot off or it was a bad shot or whatever. But the next time it came into the late shot clock scenario, it was Frankie Fiddler with the ball. Now, to Frankie Fiddler's credit, he's experienced that quite a bit when he was at Omaha. Now it's a lot different being at Omaha than it is at Michigan State, but he has been in that situation. So I think he's kind of in a difficult kind of place right now because I think it's gearing up for him to be the go-to scorer, the end of the shot clock kind of guy. But he hasn't been kind of groomed for that, and it's a weird type of deal. He's, like you said earlier, he's got to be Spartanized a little bit. But then there's other guys out there that can score, and we've seen them score. I think Trey Alleman's a good shooter. He proved it last year. Chase Richardson is a guy that can score.
He's not had a bad minute.
Right. So I mean,
in any game or exhibition or midnight madness or practice that I've seen.
I feel bad for Jaden Akins, and I think he's probably putting a lot of pressure on himself. And Jaden Akins is not a kind of guy that does well when he puts a ton of pressure on himself. But I didn't see them run too many catch and shoot out things for Jaden Akins either tonight, and I didn't see him have many transition scoring opportunities. It's going to be interesting what happens, and this is just an exhibition game, and sometimes guys play themselves out of it. We've seen Jaden Akins; he's a 40% three-point shooter for his career, but he's never done that as being the guy, and it'll be interesting.
When you get in a game and the score is 78-78, and there's 3 minutes to go, and you've been going back and forth with someone like, I don't care, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois. Those games when Tyson Walker would be taking all the shots and making big shots. You get in that situation with this team, who's the ball go to? Right now it's Akins, but it might not work out that well.
And it's got
who hit Fiddler, Fears creating off a screen, passing to whom? They posted up Kohler. He's got some ability there, but I don't know if he's a go-to guy with 3 minutes to go. There's some big guys he'll have trouble scoring against, but that's going to be a problem all year.
That's why they've got to go inside out. A guy like Jaden Akins can hit shots if they're going inside out, and he doesn't have to create. Michigan State does not have a Tyson Walker, but
like off the dribble, create your own shot, scoring.
Right, and that's not going to happen.
Can you win without having a guy like that much? That's what we're going to find out.
Unless
something happens.
Not in recent years, because Michigan State hasn't been an inside-out team. They've been so perimeter stuck on the perimeter in terms of ball screens and letting guys create and
the go-to scoring and creating your own shot and all those things has become more important since the shot clock lost 5 seconds. I know it's just 5 seconds, but it ends up screw the deal, or you got the ball, do something type of situation. Whereas when the shot clock was longer, you could run your sets a little longer, and it took another 2 passes to get something set up. Might not sound like a lot, but it is a lot. And with the shorter shot clock, and if you don't have guys that create their own shots, you get in some problems.
And you got to have a consistent, stretch version at the four. And,
that would be nice.
And that, you do, and that's one of the reasons why Michigan State was so focused on, getting Booker dialed up and as a four-man. Now this game was weird because you couldn't really afford to have him in there at the end, and you had to put Konyndyk in there. He's not going to stretch it.
Here's the problem: Booker is your stretch four. He can do it on occasion. Fiddler is a scorer, can get to the line, create his own shot. But if the screws are loose on defense, you're not going to win basketball games. Right. So Izzo can't let those guys be on the court and be that guy if they're springing leaks at the other end. That doesn't win.
But I think Frankie Fiddler is going to be able to figure it out. He's got a high basketball IQ. That's one thing that is pretty apparent with Frankie Fiddler. Now, I think he's had adjusted. You saw in the summertime how fresh he was, and at times like at Moneyball how easy and effortless it was for him. It's a whole new deal for him practicing as hard as Michigan State practices. I know that's an adjustment thing. I think he's going to figure it out, but Michigan State's got to do some other things well. This game, not being able to go inside out, they tried to early and they didn't do it very well. I thought Zappala, I feel like he had a freshman moment tonight because he's never played in front of this crowd. I didn't talk to him because he wasn't available, but I talked to Jace Richardson, and he said, yeah, I've been here and watching games a lot, but it's a whole different thing when you check into Breslin Center and all these people are in the stands and you want to do something, well for him. And I felt like Zappala.
Richardson played well.
Yeah, and Zappala rushed some shots tonight, and he was sped himself up, and he was
4 fouls, 4 turnovers.
And he was indecisive. He didn't know whether he was supposed to pass the ball out or like go to work against a guy that he obviously had a matchup advantage against. So,
and he's got something to work with. He's got some ability. He's got size. He's well put together. He's moving well.
And he did a nice job. Like in one of those plays, the only time he scored in the second half was that screen and roll, and it was a nice play. And I felt like it was out of his system. And then he got another foul right away after that.
2 illegal screens.
And you know what? And they were honestly, they're Bush League illegal screens. Some of them in this game, and by officials that haven't officiated a game, and they're trying to get their calls right. And there were probably 3 or 4 calls that probably wouldn't have been called during the 5 games into the season, but they would be called in an exhibition game.
Zapala's interesting. He's a guy that I really wanted to watch closely tonight. He started a second straight game just to see what he is, because there were some times with Longwood last year when you watch his highlights where he did some things, moved well and finished, but the minutes, the production per minutes were really good, and I heard that there were some problems last year with his endurance and so forth. That doesn't seem to be a problem here now.
He's much physically better.
Yeah,
better condition.
The summer in the weight room, that guy can add some mass. You can see it. I mean, he's a gifted specimen.
And he's added mass. He's added strength, but he's much slimmer.
He's moving well on defense. He's moving well after the screen. He's rolling well. So there's a lot of it. He's got good hands. He can finish. There's something to work with there. I'm not saying he's going to be Wilt Chamberlain.
No,
but he's all right.
And we've seen for years Michigan State when they play teams like the GLIAC teams. I don't never read too much into what I see from the bigs, either good or bad, because of the matchups. Carson Cooper, he got stuck in a few situations where he has to basically close out on a guard tonight, and
Izzo said he wasn't himself, the broken nose. Side note, me and Jake
I saw him too. Yeah, when I was walking back to my car, I saw him in the golf cart, and I'm like, and he was sitting in the golf cart, and the way he was hanging his head, I'm like, either someone got a concussion or someone got their nose busted.
Do you want to tell him where? Well, I'll tell you what. It was after
we were done for football interviews. I was walking in my car. I parked at the Breslin Center because I like a little exercise.
Yeah, like last Wednesday, we do interviews Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday or over at the football building, and sometimes we do the VCast out of the Perlis Plaza. And if we'd done the VCast that day, which was the original plan, but we did it the next day, then in the background you would have seen Carson Cooper on a golf cart holding a bag of ice going behind us because we saw him, and he was fresh off a broken nose. It's another Tuesday on campus in the afternoon, Paul. That's what it was last week. He's wearing the mask. Izzo said, did I hear Izzo right saying they got to go up there and crank it around a little bit tomorrow? So it sounds like he's having surgery. Did I hear that right?
I don't know.
It's a medical thing, so I don't want to jump to conclusions. But I think Izzo was talking about some corrective nose thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty like highbrow medical talk. Crank it around a little bit.
Go up there and crank it out, crank it around. So that's what Cooper's got going on. So Izzo gave him a little bit of a pass today because he wasn't himself. Kohler was giving effort on the boards. And, we've talked about it. He's a little more lean and he's slimmed up a little bit. And that is showing itself. He's a little quicker of a leaper now. He's a little quicker with his leaps. Plus, he's 21 now instead of 19. That makes a difference also. Or whatever, however old he is. He's 2 years older than he was 2 years ago. That's my Uper math.
He's confident. You can see that out there. I think he's still feeling his way around. He scored 9 points and had 11 rebounds tonight. And he did it, and I think this is, meaningful for me at least. He did it without hitting all those perimeter jumpers or face-up jumpers, and to see him do that with his back to the basket, and and it was like some of it was nice screen and roll type stuff. You saw a lot of good. He
did some first option stuff. He was a first option guy, and I think he's got first option offense.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good thing to see. I think this team is more kind of diverse and they can do more things, but they're a long ways from having all their roles figured out and having guys comfortable in those roles. And I'm going to be interested to see how the minutes all shake out in that season opener against Monmouth, because now that the exhibition season is over, it's going to be, you can't play as many guys as many minutes as they did. And
Izzo said he hinted at a starting lineup change, which wouldn't surprise me. So I'm guessing, if Zabala comes out, Kohler goes in, can Kohler and Booker start together? Maybe against Monmouth. But in the Big Ten, can those two guys more finesse-oriented, can they start together? And also Akins. He was hinting at Akins. I don't think he's going to do it. But, Akins and Fiddler, would one of those guys sit?
Fiddler's not going to sit. He's not going to. They're going to...
Izzo might want to, and he talks about it indirectly, but he's probably not going to do it.
You take Fiddler out of the game, take Fiddler out of your starting lineup, and you've got to prepare a lot of there's a lot of different stuff that he does that you have to prepare for, and so I don't know. I think at some point maybe Akins does get. there's going to be lineup juggling, but it's not going to happen. I can see the change I could see is either Booker coming off the bench or Zappala coming off the bench. I just don't see them changing like Aiken's out just yet. He's been around for a long time. He's worked really hard. Izzo's going to give him a chance.
He'll give him till January.
Right, and he should.
Ballinger and Chris Hill and those guys, you get till January.
As he should. We've seen a lot of guys come into new roles and struggle early and end up fitting in those roles. The one guy that really kind of disappointed me, Booker today. I just felt like he was from the jump ball, soft on the jump ball, which he's not very good at, but some of the stuff, like he wanted to shoot threes, he did okay at that, but some of the stuff where he's trying to score around the basket or drive, it was just really soft. And
he got all the way to the rim and missed, but
it wasn't strong. It wasn't strong to the rim, and it wouldn't work in Big Ten.
It wouldn't work.
The other thing is, I felt like there's times where his opponent got the ball on the block, and he let himself get back down so easily that it was like, it was like if I was playing against my kid in the driveway, and I let my kid drive on me.
And in practice, I've seen him really body up Kohler, and when Kohler posts up against Booker in practice, Kohler has trouble scoring on him.
Right, and I think that's the thing that Izzo, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things that stuck out to me when I watched the practice the other day. As physical as that thing was, and they have those squads like split up, and the second team was ended up beating the first team in that, and those guys were going at it, going hard, and Booker was really giving effort. And then you see out here today where he got caught in several lapses, and there's a couple missed switches. There's just a lot of stuff that you would think. I'd hope that a team that played exhibition games in the summer would have fixed. A team that is playing a second exhibition game, a team that has a lot of returning players. Yeah, new pieces, but you guys have played together. You guys have played high-level basketball in practice. And what I saw on the floor today didn't do justice to what I've seen in practice. So it's one thing about saying, hey, we got to figure out rotations, we got to figure out who does what, but I've seen who does what work in practice with a higher level of effort than I saw today, and that's kind of, to me, concerning.
Yeah, and it's hard to decide to sit Kerr, Tang, or only play Richardson 10 minutes a game when the guys in front of them aren't much better than them. So that's what Izzo's getting at. And where would this team be if they didn't have those practices and that trip to Europe right now? So they're lucky they had that. It was a good year for them to do that. Paul, everybody in town's talking about football and the brawl.
Yeah. Well, it's not a brawl.
Scuffle.
I don't even know what you want to call it.
Fracas. It's a melee.
No, I think melee should have some real damage.
Okay. Khalil Mullings was out there. Looks like he was trying to do some damage on somebody. And, they said they couldn't see who he was hitting, so they didn't give him a suspension.
Right.
It's a different commissioner, but when you talk about precedents, Will Golston got a game back in 2011 when he smacked Taylor Lewan. Justified, whatever. But so that's what Alan Haller was getting at when he was saying that he thought that the sportsmanship thing should be applied, and he called the Big Ten about it. And he said whether his statement today was whether he agreed with it or not, the decision is final. What would you have, people are kind of thinking that maybe Alan Haller should have came out and went with Nikita Khrushchev about it. Some people thought Izzo might give a statement today. He did not. Maybe it slipped his mind. He's got other things on his plate. Maybe he'll talk about it after practice next week. I think it's a bad precedent for the Big Ten that you allow a team with 30 seconds left on a game, with game time going on, to pour over a sideline and get involved in an on-field shoving match. You can't allow that. You got to, and Anthony Woods was involved in that, and Anthony Jones, I think, was involved. He might have taken a swing at somebody during the scrum. Yeah. So I think Anthony Jones. I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd gotten suspended, but I would have thought that Mullings and at least one other Michigan player, and however many, you do that in basketball. If there's a scrum out here and you leave the bench, you're all suspended. You are not allowed to leave the bench area. Now, it's a gray area because, it's a last kneel down and people come out of the field. Well, you're really not supposed to do that. Bottom line is about 20 guys left the sideline to join a fight. And if a melee, a Donnybrook, what was it? It was a fracas, a dust-up?
It's a pushy match.
But you can't leave the bench to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand why people are upset because of what happened to Michigan State. But if you take that out of the context, to me, To me, what happened with the toll tunnel thing, besides the helmet swinging crap, like if you swing helmets and someone gets hurt,
It's foul.
Yeah, I don't care. But the other stuff that happened, the uproar because of the pushing match or whatever that happened, and the fact that it was on camera.
This game or last year?
No, the last a couple of years ago. That stuff was way overblown. But the reaction to what happened this past weekend is such around here because of what happened 2 years ago. And to me, I'm not surprised. I don't think Alan Hamler, being a guy who spent his life in law enforcement, is going to go all of a sudden go politician and try to overreact and try to be outward manual. And so it's one of those things where a lot of fans are like emotional and they want, hey, what happened to them needs to happen to us. But I don't necessarily see it that way. I think it was Bush League what happened to Michigan State before, and just because Michigan didn't get a pound of flesh extracted this time. Doesn't mean that it should have happened. Mullings, yeah, he should be suspended.
Yes.
Yeah, but the other stuff. I mean, I think honestly, what I talked about this with my wife the other night, and I said this is a good thing for Jonathan Smith's program. The rivalry is super real to them now, and it gives them something to feel a little bit of hate about, and I think it's something you can use as motivation moving forward. But
is a headbutt equal to a head slap? Is what Loveland did, is that any worse than what Will Golston did?
Will Golston had a few times in that game where he threw people all around, and he was. If you watch that game from start to finish, it's easy to make an argument that he was out of control. But I'm not, like what I'm saying. I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to be like, oh, this happened to him. It's so unfair that we should do the same thing to someone else because we have the opportunity. I think that's Bush.
Now you're throwing sand in a sandbox.
Right, and I don't care. I mean, I expect crap like that to happen in a rivalry game. I expect the shoving and pushing to happen. That's part of being in a rivalry game. But to be like everyone needs to get, you
can't pour off the sideline to join it.
No, you shouldn't. And I'm not saying it's right. And the Big Ten should at least issue some sort of reprimand or like whatever the.
They should probably find Pat Narduzzi.
But I don't like me personally. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Well, how can you feel this way?" I just don't care about that crap, and I get tired of it. To me, I'm like, if I'm Michigan State, if you make a big deal out of it, you're not like if you're Jonathan Smith, and that's what's occupying you right now when you got to get ready to play Indiana. You're gonna get your ass handed to you even worse than if you would the other way. So this is not the arena of politics, and I just get tired of grievance politics in general in life, and I just don't care.
Roger. We'll end it with that. I appreciate that, Paul. Anything else?
No.
That's Paul Konyndyk, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Been watching the VCast from Michigan State, from the Breslin Center with the Spartans for SpartanMag.com.
I just feel like it's a bit